Hey everybody. Well, I got another request for a dessert, so I'm going to do one for you. Now, I was inspired by a recipe by Auguste Escoffier. Now, Escoffier is pretty much the godfather of modern professional cuisine. A lot of his recipes, his theories, his work practices, all of it have greatly influenced modern techniques in kitchens around the world to this day. Now, that being said, there's always room for improvement and flights of fancy. And the recipe I'm going to be using is called a Belle He, which is essentially chocolate, pears, and a vanilla. Now, his was a pear with chocolate sauce and a vanilla ice cream. Mine is basically going to be using a concentrated cake-like filling for 2 layers, possibly some custard or something vanilla at the end. Let's check it out. Yeah, looks like I got some shoveling I have to do. So today's recipe is a Belle He gourmandise. So what I'm going to be doing is a creamy chocolate layer, a creamy pear layer, and a vanilla custard. Escoffier was inspired by an operetta from a composer called Offenbach, and it was called La Belle Hélène, or The War of Helen of Troy. And you can see the interplay between the chocolate, the vanilla, and the pear as being similar to that story. Anyhow, to start off with my chocolate layer, I'm going to take about 45 to 55 grams of good covering chocolate. I'm going to chop it up roughly, and then I'm going to put it in a double boiler or a bain-marie just to melt. As the chocolate's melting, we're going to take 1 egg yolk, about 10 grams of sugar, we're going to whisk it together, to which we're going to add about 100 milliliters of cream and milk combined. This is going to be a custard. So what we do is we whisk everything together and we add the hot milk gradually. This ensures that you don't scramble the eggs. What we're doing is called tempering. Once this hits the 185-degree mark, what we're going to do is we're going to pour this into the melted chocolate and gradually incorporate. This will be the base for our layer, known as a chocolate crémeux. And this is what our crémeux looks like. The custard's been added to the chocolate and it's fully incorporated, but now we're going to buzz it up with an immersion blender to make it extra smooth. Now a crémeux is similar to a ganache, and a ganache is basically just chocolate cream and a bit of butter, but in this case ours is enriched with egg, a bit more sugar, and a bit more dairy. It gives it a nice creamier, rich texture. Once we finish with the immersion blender, notice how smooth and shiny this is? It's excellent. Now we pour it into a shape of a mold of some sort. In this case, I'm using a silicone muffin tin. Then we proceed on with our pear crémeux. So once these are filled, I'll put it in the freezer for about an hour. Then I'll follow it up with my pear crémeux and freeze it some more. Chocolate, once you freeze it, is pretty structurally sound, so you don't have to add anything else to it. In the pears, however, I'm going to have to add a gelifying agent. And now for the pear crémeux. So to start off with, we're going to have 2 egg yolks, followed by about 15 grams of sugar, and we're also going to have about 3 grams of gelatin, to which we've added 15 milliliters of water, and we're going to set aside. This is known as blooming. And our final ingredient is 50 to 65 grams of butter. Now this is just to give it that extra creaminess at the end. We're going to emulsify the entire thing. Oh yeah, You need pears in a pear crémeux. So we have about 185 grams of pears. We'll put this inside of a blender jar. We add our sugar, our eggs, and we're going to puree this all up. Now the pear crémeux requires a gelifying agent to make it stand up. Otherwise, it'll just melt out or become crystalline. So what we do is we heat it up to 185, we add our gelatin, let it cool down, and then we buzz in the butter. Now this is an important step. That's what gives it the richness. So remember, add the gelatin, you let it cool down to around 90 degrees, you add the butter, and you emulsify. Don't forget the butter, and it has to be cool. Then we take our chocolate out of the freezer and we pour in our pear on top. Now we also need to make a base for it, and I had some leftover short dough, so I made a cookie with it. And after everything is frozen, you take it out and you let it cool off in the fridge overnight. And you get a chocolate layer, a pear layer. Oh yeah, I need vanilla. So I made a little bit of pastry cream or crème pâtissière right over the top. Belle He, everybody. Share, like, and subscribe.